Okay, well, Oliver from Rugby League, in my opinion, here, joined today by York City Knights player Jordan Baldwinson. How are you today, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So we'll
Good,
we'll
mate.
get to your upcoming schedule in a little while. A couple of tough games, but most recently, you guys were able to defeat the London Broncos, a fellow championship contender in the Challenge Cup. How was that?
Yeah, to be fair, mate, it was a really tough game. Obviously, London are a full-time team and we're not, so it was always going to be a tough game, a big ask for obviously the boys. But we travelled down there. We started off the game a bit shaky. We obviously were giving too many penalties away, too many errors, which ultimately made it a lot tougher. But the boys really dug in, mate, and luckily we got the win against a good London team. So things are looking good. We look strong, we look fit. A few areas in attack that we do need to obviously improve, but as far as defence goes, it's nice to see that we're quite solid and we're not conceding too many points. So overall, a bit scratchy in areas, but we're on a good level. I reckon we're on a good starting point for the season ahead. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to talk a bit about your career. Starting out in Leeds, born and raised, I believe.
Yep, yep. Started off at Leeds. To be fair, it was obviously a great achievement to sign my first professional contract with Leeds. Obviously, starting at living in Leeds, obviously growing up supporting Leeds, it was always a big dream of mine. So when I finally got there and made my debut, it was just like, it was like a dream come true, basically. But to be fair, like as you get older and things like that, what becomes more important really is game time.
Yeah.
And I was struggling for game time, so I spent a lot of time on dual reg, on loan, and things like that. A lot of time at Featherstone. Went out to Bradford Bulls for a little bit, and then I got to a point where they wanted to offer me a proper full time contract. So when you start off at Leeds, it's kind of like you get thrown in training, but you're not full time.
Yeah.
But they offer you a full time contract. I got to that point where they offered me one, but I had other options to be fair, and one that really stood out was obviously the opportunity to go over to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Now, I took that with both hands. To be fair, it was an amazing opportunity, especially only at the age of 19. It was just kind of the opportunity I couldn't really turn down. So I spent a bit of time over there under Stacey Jones, which was an amazing experience. We played in the Vodafone 20s, and it was really good. But obviously, as we went there, I went over with a guy called Mason Tonks, and the level of competition was really high. It was an amazing standard. We learned a lot in the pre-season we had over there, that NRL pre-season, are just like when people ask me about it, they don't believe me when I explain it to them how hard it is. Like that's how hard it is. It's just another level. But yeah, it was a great experience. It got cut short, unfortunately, but I learned a lot from that experience, and then ended back up obviously at Leeds. Played quite a few games for Leeds, in and out a lot again, in and out at Featherstone, at Leeds, on dual reg. So then I took the plunge and thought it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So I went to Wakefield, and Wakefield was a bit of a backward step in my career, in my opinion. It was nothing to do with the club in general or the players, things like that, because the players were great. I really enjoyed my time around the players, but I just kind of like didn't get any game time that I was expecting.
Yeah.
So, it was a bit of a disappointment. That was the main reason why I went to Wakefield. But obviously, I got there and game time was so limited for me. Once again, I ended up on loan, went to Leeds Insurance, went to Halifax on loan. And then eventually I just thought, you know what, I'm getting to the point in my career where I ain't bothered about what level I'm playing at. What's more important for me is playing. And I found York, and I haven't looked back since. York's been amazing to me. They've really took me in, and I can honestly say that I'm really enjoying my rugby league now, which is brilliant. So very grateful to York.
Mate, that's awesome. And you know what? You talk about a career spanning all these teams. The thing I find with players who have been around a bit is that experience, I guess, I don't know, you're sort of better for it in a way. Is that how you feel, being able to experience all these different cities and towns and all these different clubs? Has it helped you grow as a player?
Absolutely, like I say, a lot of people, it's a bit of a running joke sometimes because they say, oh, but Baldwinson, he's been around a bit, or he's a bit of a journeyman, and it's only jokes. But for me, I think it's a brilliant opportunity to try different places, meet new people. The amount of friends and players and people that I've met along the way has been amazing. Like there's not many players that can say they've played for like 8 clubs, and not they're not. It's not like the bottom end clubs. There's some really good clubs in there, and some top end championship clubs, and we've played in some real tough games. So I've really enjoyed it. I've had the opportunity to be coached by a number of different coaches and see what kind of coach suits me best. And obviously, I've had the opportunity to play in front of a lot of different fans and see what kind of fans are at different clubs. But in terms of experience, I do think it does really help me in terms of my experience. I've played at different clubs. I know what different clubs are like. I know what all the players are like at these clubs. So for me, I've enjoyed it. I think it's really good to have on my CV that I've played for these clubs. So, like you say, it has done a lot of good for my experience. And, I've played some really good games for these clubs. So I don't regret any of the clubs at all.
Yeah, you talk about the move to York and how you just sort of knew. I believe it was a loan deal at first, and then you signed on with the club permanently. What was it like, I guess, making that move not only to York but I guess to the city? Was that a big impact? Because obviously York, I don't believe, is too far from Leeds. So was that a contributing factor, being able to stay relatively at home?
Yes, to be fair, that was probably one of the main reasons. Like, if when you look at York, I'm not sure if you've ever been to York, but it's an absolutely beautiful place. It really is. There's so much to do. It's really, really rich in its history. It's just a beautiful place, and the nightlife and the attraction that it brings to people that want to come and visit York is massive, and the potential is massive. And when obviously the opportunity came to play for York, there were quite a few factors in there in terms of the city, which is not too far from where I live. I mean, it's only a 35-minute drive away, which isn't far considering I've played at places like Lee and things like that, which is a lot further. But the new stadium was a big attraction, and it has been for a lot of the new players that have signed this season. The coaching staff board it has got a great reputation with taking players that have struggled with game time and pushing them on to achieve what they can achieve. If you look at his track record, he very rarely loses games. He's always got a really good competition within his team. He always pushes players on to get to where they want to be in terms of pushing from Championship to Super League. So I just thought that he would really suit me. But there's loads of things like the players as well. The players that are already there are a really good bunch of players. I've never been around a bunch of lads that I've enjoyed to be around as much as I have with the York lads. They're just really down to earth. So yeah, I mean, all them combined for me was just a no-brainer. Like, especially when I enjoyed my first few games on loan, I thought I can see myself staying here.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got the opportunity, I just thought, that's me. I'm going to do as long as I can at York. So that was me, to be fair.
Yeah, well, the difference between you and a couple of the York players I've interviewed is that they've been new signings, Time Nicow, Brennan O'Hagan, but you've been at the club for a couple of years. So what I'm interested to know is, what's it been like during that transition period, especially over the past 12 months, the new stadium, all of these new signings? Has it been a positive? Do you believe, have those guys really sort of gelled in and I guess bought into the mentality of the York City Knights? Like, how have you perceived all this change pretty much?
Yeah, to be fair, it's been quite a big transition in fairness. Like you say, I started at York about 2 years ago. I might take away the year with COVID that we've just had. We can't really count that as a year. But the first year was a bit of a strange year because the lads had just been promoted into the Championship, so there was no expectation for them to do that well. A lot of people was even betting on York to maybe even go back down.
Yeah.
So to finish where they finished, which was I think they finished third in total, which was an amazing achievement. And to be fair to the boys, they deserved it. And I kind of joined halfway through that season, so I can't really take full credit for it. But I think I kind of got a feel for what it was like because I played about 15 of them games that season, and the lads worked so hard. And at York City Knights, we have a big emphasis on being the hardest working team, the most the team that's always doing the little things right, making sure that we might not have the most expensive players and the biggest names, but we're there on time. We make sure we do our extras. We always push ourselves in the gym, on the field, and things like that. So we have that hard working mentality. And it was always going to be a challenge when we got the new stadium, when we started to get new players, that a lot of expectation, it's now it's kind of like flipped on its head, and people expect us to do well rather than not. So it's now, I think that transition for us is dealing with the pressure of, the wins are expecting us to be a tougher team now. And obviously, we've made some really good signings. Like you say, we've signed Brendan, Time, two really good players. We've signed Kieran Dixon, Danny Kermond, Adam Cuthbertson. I mean, Adam Cuthbertson, he's played don't know how many NRL games. So the type of players that we're attracting are really starting to grow. And, I'm sure the new stadium has had an impact on that. I'm sure the city's had an impact on that. But, they've fitted in really well. I can honestly say that the boys have really gelled together really well this pre-season. And, I'm just hoping that it's really going to show this season and we can, hopefully push for that top end and even possibly promotion.
Well, you guys do have a couple of big tests coming up straight off the bat. First of all, the opening game for your championship season up against Toulouse, who are the team many people are tipping to get promoted. It's pretty much either you guys or Toulouse. So I guess you could say this is a bit of a grand final in a way. There are plenty of expectations between both clubs, plenty of new signings, plenty of Super League experience in both clubs now. How have the preparations been for this game?
Yeah, it's you are right. This is it sounds silly saying it's one of the most important games of the season, being round one, but it kind of is, to be fair, because I think Toulouse are going to set the benchmark of where we need to be at in terms of if we're serious about getting promoted, these are the teams we need to beat. And obviously, there's Toulouse that are one of them. Featherstone will be pushing for it. Teams like London, who we played last week, I mean, we got a good win. They're going to be pushing for promotion. So, in terms of this week, we've got Toulouse. They've got amazing players like that, Corella, Ford, and people like that. They've got Harrison Hansen as well, Mitch Garbutt. So, yeah, it's going to be a test and a physical one, but we've prepared well for it this week. We've really prepared well for it. We know what we want to do in terms of game plans and things like that. I suppose it's just time to just rip in. As soon as the whistle goes, there's no holding back really. You can't really dip your toe into this one and test the water and see what it's like, because if you do, you're going to be 16 points down. You know what I mean? That they really are a good attacking team. And to be fair, I mean, I thought that, they had a real good chance of getting that, the spot in Super League that was up for grabs when Toronto dropped out. Yeah. I honestly did think that they was, real strong contenders for doing that, to get into that spot. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a challenge, but I think we'll rise to it. I know that the boys have prepared well. So, fingers crossed. I'm going to do everything I can to help the boys to get the win. So let's just go for it, see what happens.
Yeah, well, then after the game against Toulouse, I mean, in the media, at least over here in Australia, from what I've heard from the English media, is like York can't wait to get a bit of, Super League competition. They can't wait to go up against the Super League club in the Challenge Cup. Well, the Wigan Warriors, you couldn't have asked for a better test, could you?
Well, that's it. To be fair, when I saw the draw, I thought, I wonder what team we're going to get. And obviously, the boys have spoke about Super League competition and things like
Yeah,
that. And like you said, yeah, you couldn't really ask for a tougher draw, really, could you? Wigan. So, it's going to be an amazing experience. To be fair, a lot of the boys, they've not had, there is a lot of the players that have not had that experience against the Super League team. So it's going to be a challenge for them as well. But in terms of us as a team and where we want to be, these are the teams we want to be playing against. We want to be challenging ourselves against the best players in the league. The best player like John Bateman and people like that. We want to test ourselves against players like that and see where we're at. Because if we are being serious about potentially reaching Super League status, we need to be playing these teams, and we can then look back. Regardless of what happens in the game, I know that the boys are going to put 100% in, but regardless of what happens, we can look back and see areas that we did well against these players and see areas that we didn't do too well that we need to fix up in order to reach that level.
yeah.
So, like you say, Wigan is like the ultimate, the ultimate challenge. And it's not too far away as well. So we've got Toulouse and then Wigan. So two really, really tough weeks. But I'm sure the boys will pull together, work hard, and we'll rip into Wigan.
Yeah, and I believe the game against Wigan is actually going to be live streamed on the Sportsman. So that's free. You can watch it on YouTube, Facebook. Those guys are going to stream it there. Over here in Australia, to any of our Australian listeners who are interested, 10th of April, 4:45 a.m. So an early start, but it'll be worth it. On the Sportsman, as I said, YouTube, Facebook, and to any of our listeners over in England, I believe it'll be 6:45 p.m.
Yeah.
roundabouts there. Yeah. So guys, make sure you tune in. It's free. YouTube, Facebook, and see how York matches up against a bit of a Super League competition. Before I let you go, Jordan, this is just a question that I thought of off the top of my head. You bring up the Toronto Wolfpack. I'm not sure if you've seen, but yesterday it was announced that the North American Rugby League competition was launching. Toronto would be in that comp. I'm not going to ask specifically if that's a goal of yours to play in North America or something, but is that something that would interest you one day in your career if this league is to grow? And, there are plenty of expectations on it, a professional league in North America. Is that something that would ever pique your interest, I guess, one day?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be an amazing opportunity. Like, as you can see, in my past career that went over to New Zealand, and it was an amazing opportunity. And I think a lot of players in our league will find that opportunity will come to them. And I can't see why they wouldn't take it. What an amazing opportunity to go over to that country and be part of a different league that's just starting up. It's exciting. The potential. We saw what Toronto was like. I mean, they wasn't around for long, but in terms of like the signings they were making, the fans that they were generating. I mean, they signed Sonny Bill Williams, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of signing says like, this is like, it's got potential. In terms of me, would I ever go? I mean, I am enjoying my time at York and I love my time at York, but it may be in the future, if the opportunity did arise, why not? As long as it's the right move for me, and as long as it's, things like, you've got to take into things into consideration, like your financial status.
Yeah.
Is it worth leaving my job? Is it worth leaving? Is my family going to be wanting to come with me? Things like that. So there's always that. There's always them things you need to think about. But what an amazing opportunity that's going to be. And if it does take off, I mean, it could be massive. You know what I mean? It's going to be great for rugby league in general. So who knows? Fingers crossed it does kick off and it creates loads of new fans for rugby league and hopefully a lot of opportunity for players in the UK as well.
Yeah. Well, if you end up staying at York for the rest of your career, will you be happy with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't have stayed at York in if I didn't love the club. I've been there now, and as you know me, I'm all about game time. I'm all about being somewhere that I enjoy. And if York was to if I was to stay at York for the rest of my career, I'd love it.
Yeah.
If it was to stay how it is right now, then absolutely, give me the pen, give me the contract, I'd sign it. So, I absolutely love the club. The fans are amazing. The boys are first class. The coach is brilliant. The facilities we've got are amazing. So, I mean, there is real potential for York to go possibly full time in the next few years. Fingers crossed. If we can get it right, if we can bring that fan base up, and if we can really push York as a brand out there, and the city that York is, I can't see why in a few years York could turn into a full-time Super League club. So let's just hope it does.
Well, fingers crossed. Jordan, thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time this
no
evening for
problem,
you,
mate.
this morning for me. Yeah, thank you so much. And to all our listeners out there who are tuning in, thank you guys. A quick word from our sponsor, Champ Mouthguards, before we head off.